Well, it was the publisher released it on November 1st, which was not planned to correlate with the election at all. That was just when copy editing and proofing and layout and all of that happened to work out for a timeline. But I would say it's been good timing from a marketing perspective because there's a lot of people who are suddenly realizing that this is a topic that we can't, it's not just going to keep getting better little bit by little bit over time. We actually need to put some work in. So we've had a lot of speaking requests, some consulting requests to help people figure out how they can create a more inclusive environment within their organizations or communities. And the book has really helped us spread that message a little bit further. I think it's actually become harder for people to talk across the political divide than it used to be. I mean, we've been politically polarized for a while. It's not a new phenomenon, but the number of people who just anecdotally I know that cut off their families or refuse to go home for Thanksgiving and are just unable to relate, much less talk, across the divide is problematic. And I think too, the uptick in xenophobia and racism and the explosion of hate crimes is really disturbing trend that I think people feel emboldened by what they hear coming from certain levels of political leadership. So I think just increasing division within the country generally is what I've noticed. I mean, I think there's a lot of people who defend the statues or want to keep things like they are without ever really putting themselves in the shoes of somebody else to think about why might this be a problem for anybody else. And I think that's an unfortunate part of the debate that I see is folks who are just discounting other people's opinions, the history that these statues represent, and the feelings that brings up in folks. And so I'm sad to see people just be dismissive of that before we even get to practical conversations like what should we do. Most intriguing place I visited was probably Kenya on a personal trip where I took public transit across the country, but that's nice. A whole other story. I think from a work perspective, we helped to facilitate a policy workshop last year in Athens, Greece, which had been kind of ground zero for the migrant crisis. And our job was to make policy recommendations for improving social equity. And the tension that we had to really pay attention to was not making it solely focused on helping refugees at the expense of the native-born population whose economy has been struggling. Jobs are, in bad shape. They had the debt crisis and austerity and all of that. And one of the reasons I thought it was fascinating was the immigration crisis really exacerbated already ongoing tensions about how do we deal with our faltering economy. And so to the point where we had a lunch at a restaurant that we didn't know ahead of time, but we discovered when we got there was the small business owner, who is why we were going there, was to understand the small business perspective, was a supporter of the fascist party. And we had brought the person that we had met with just previously on our study tour who ran a refugee center, and they almost didn't let us have lunch because those two folks couldn't stand each other to that point. So I think, this political polarization, questions about immigration and difference and otherness and nationality and economy and all of this is not primarily or only an American question. It's happening all over the world, but countries that have historically had some wealth and privilege are dealing with the fact that we are more mobile. We have people coming from places that are desperate and looking for some kind of hope for themselves and their family, and it's creating tensions all over the world that we need to figure out collectively what can we do. I think, similar to the message that I gave last year, our country is really full of division, politically, racially, socioeconomically, and there is no message you can craft that's going to hit everybody the same. And in fact, people put out well-intentioned ads and campaigns all the time that get blowback that they didn't expect. So for me, I think it's really, really crucial to have diversity on the team that is creating stuff. And not just skin color diversity of a whole bunch of people who went through the brand center but look different, but people who are from different backgrounds, maybe folks with an immigration background, folks who, grew up rural versus city, all kinds of differences are going to help you figure out how to calibrate messages to hit the most number of people so that you don't put millions of dollars into a campaign that has to be pulled the next day because it creates a Twitter storm of criticism. So I think really, again, it's just recognize this is a massively large country with, people from all different perspectives and backgrounds and walks of life, and engage as many different perspectives as you can before you put things out on the street.